when we are designing new spaces, I
Yeah.
always say, especially in Vegas and elsewhere too, what's your first impression? And then I like to say, what's your last impression? And so we try to think about it's hard, but I think about the intangibles, like how the space feels.
Hi, this is Ted Kelly with another Ted's Hospitality Minute. Hey, today we've got a great guest on. His name is Brett Robillard. He is the principal studio director, design director at Gensler, Las Vegas, and he's going to come on and talk about all of the great things that they're doing out in Vegas and update us on all of the wonderful things going on at Gensler. Hi, Brett. Thanks so much for chatting with us today. We appreciate you giving us some time.
It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning to you, Ted.
Awesome. Well, before we get into the conversation, one of the things that we do on the THM is we always like to find out a little bit more about our guests because we find out, as you probably know, folks in the hospitality industry didn't necessarily start out wanting to be in the hospitality space. Can you tell us a little bit about your hospitality trek and was it something you always wanted to do?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm originally from Boston, and came out to Las Vegas in 2006, actually to work on the Fontainebleau, which is finally going to open after 18 years. So, but gosh, I've been doing architecture almost 30 years. And in my own career, I've been more what they call a generalist, where I've worked on everything from stadium projects to office buildings to hospitality, of course. So, when I moved out to Las Vegas, that was really, you get more immersed in that part of the architectural realm because it's so prevalent here. And so over the years, and now being with Gensler and being located here in Vegas, a lot of the work that we do, I'd say, gosh, maybe 2/3 of the work we do touches hospitality or what we call lifestyle space, and that can range from hotels to casinos to food and beverage, even performing arts venues. So it's really exciting. It's very vibrant. I do enjoy it. I think during my time here in Vegas, it's been I've really learned to love the hospitality environment because it's fun. I mean, a lot of I've designed office buildings and those are nice too, but hospitality is great because most people are engaging in those projects to have a good time. And that brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, that is 100% spot on, man. Because I tell you what, it the hospitality space, either you love it or you hate it.
Yeah, the projects, I will tell you that, every project has its own demands and nuances, but with hotels and the hospitality realm, they are very challenging projects. There's a lot of layers to them. And in particular, in Las Vegas, what we call an integrated resort is that, the big casinos that have convention, performing arts center, because, all of the stuff that people know of, all of that has to coexist, and they become very complicated and demanding projects. So it can be a grind sometimes, but it's good.
Tell us a little bit about Gensler. You're a pretty large architectural services firm, I believe, correct?
Yes, Gensler started back in the 60s with only three people, including our founder, Art Gensler. And now we are close to 6,000 people worldwide. We have 53 offices across, I think it's four continents now. So very, very large firm. Some of our offices are very big. Our New York office and Los Angeles office have hundreds of people. Here in Las Vegas, we're just around 30 people, and so we operate. We're very, particularly after COVID and all the remote connections, we really operate sort of without boundaries. So we're constantly connecting with other folks in different offices, and the way we do that is just bring like whatever the right expertise is for any given project. We're able to kind of push and pull and triangulate. Of course, we do a lot of the work here in Vegas from Las Vegas, but the firm's really remarkable. I mean, it's gone from when we started was just an interior design firm, and of course now we have 26 different practice areas that involve high rises, hospitals, of course hospitality, and so it's a very deep, rich culture with a huge impact throughout the world. And we also are keenly focused on issues about sustainability because of the reach that we have. It's really, I think, our responsibility to take the lead on that, and so we have a very keen focus on those issues as well.
Yeah, that is awesome. And congratulations. I noticed a little bit of some of your rap sheet. You guys have got all kinds of awards for interior design and architecture. Man, you guys are racking it up, I think.
Yeah, we have a lot of projects, and but like I said, it's really interesting because and again, to hospitality in the recent years, we've transcended what I would consider a normal architecture practice, because we do planning, meaning for workplace strategy. We also have what we call DXD, which is digital experience design, and so we've got an entire group of people within our firm, in fact, several groups that focus solely on digital content and how that interfaces with architecture. And it's getting more and more prevalent, of course, with LED and augmented reality and all this kind of immersive entertainment that we're seeing. And so that's a very exciting aspect to what we do presently, and where I think design and architecture is actually going.
Wow, wow. That's amazing. Give me 1 second. I got to give a shout out to our sponsor here, THM viewers. This episode is being sponsored by Recover It. If you've experienced a home fire, tornado, or hurricane, you know how easy it is to lose everything overnight. Well, Recover It is a new app that allows you to record everything in your home and store it in the clouds for easy retrieval should disaster strike versus you trying to recall all of your household valuables, jewelry, and heirlooms to settle claims with your insurance company. Check out the Recover It app today. And if you check the promo code on the screen, you'll get 50% off. And as always, we always ask our THM viewers to like us here on LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can catch this episode with Brett on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. And we always appreciate your feedback and your comments. Thanks so much. All right. So, Brett, talk a little bit about the design world. Let's get into the immersive designs. I think there's a whole bunch of stuff out there that you guys kind of put into the pot, to the mix, should I say, when you're trying to come up with new ideas on project. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think particularly, Las Vegas is known as kind of the neon city, and over time, what was once just neon and some of these classic signs, which are really cool, has become high res LED, and everything from the new Sphere, which is truly remarkable, to the billboards that we see. All of that, is starting to fuse with the built environment, and I think a more exciting and prevalent way, because before you used to just have, say, a video board somewhere. Now it could be an entire facade, or as you move through a space, the manner in which you're interacting with digital content is becoming much, much more sophisticated. And it's also, I think it's blurring the line between you know digital content and the physical built space. And the big part of that is, for me, and to your original question about when we start to design something, I'm old school, so I still have my markers and all that stuff. Some of the younger folks go right to the computer. But we're trying to come up with sort of the driving force behind any project, what the we call it a partie, what the big idea is for anything. And that could be, if it's a restaurant or a big resort, it's still similar in a way. And then, but what we're doing now is, we're with our team and some of the new technologies, we're using these to sort of amplify the ideas. A good example that's opened recently and has had a lot of success here in Las Vegas is called Area 15. And it's effectively a very simple box, but inside is off the off the charts immersive experiences that, in some ways they're kind of choose your own adventure, where each time you experience a space might be a little different. But they've been fabulously successful. I worked on two separate projects over there, and Gensler continues to work with that group on a number of other similar projects, both locally and elsewhere. So it's a really exciting time. I mean, architecture in my career arc, I've even seen styles can kind of come and go, but I do think that at this point we're at this sort of profound juncture where it's pivotal. Architecture itself is starting to evolve um, on a perhaps different trajectory.
Yep, yep. And you talked about the digital platforms and how it's more alive and almost it's almost like driving live customer engagement, right? Interaction with what's going on a digital screen. And I'm sitting there going like, man, this is almost like being at home watching television and you just got all this stuff coming at you, you know, and these 30-second blips, right? It's like, oh, here's this, here's that, So it's kind of interesting how it happens, but it's almost like it's 100% live engagement all the time.
It is, and I mean, I think that, as much as I was suggesting how exciting that is, the I think the dark side to that is that we're all sort of bombarded with information on our phones and TVs and all these other devices, and so sometimes I think you, the, you have to be very careful not to lose the, I think, humanity of architecture and design and even hospitality, so that it's not just, I think if you're fully immersed in a video game, you may as well just be in a at home with a set of goggles on, right? So, we still take great care and think about the human experience, and how technology can amplify that rather than replace it. And so, when we are designing new spaces, I always say, especially in Vegas and elsewhere too, what's your first impression? And then I like to say, what's your last impression? And so we try to think about it's hard, but I think about the intangibles, like how the space feels. And it's kind of hard to draw that. But what we are seeing is more almost multi-sensory type engagement and, sight, sound, even touch, tastes and smells is a tough one. But I mean, if you look at Disneyland, they do. There's all these immersive rides where they'll pump in pine scent and you're flying over the forest or something like that, which I mean, it's a little gimmicky, but it's the sense of smell is pretty strong and powerful for memory. And so we're seeing that too, and certainly for those of folks who have been to Vegas, many of the casinos have like a custom scent that they pump through the casino, and it helps. It actually has a real trick to it to help you remember, and tie into your olfactory senses to remember where that particular place.
Yeah, I think you're so right, and everything is is catered. I mean, everything is thought about. Everything is, it's like there's a whole lot of thought that goes in how you walk into a certain hotel and who greets you and what does it feel like. Like you said, when you walk in. I mean, I am a big proponent of first impressions. So when I walk in a lobby of a hotel, if it doesn't feel right, that's kind of my first, you know, let me see, let me, let me see how this is going to go. And then, then the people kick in, right? And then people, how they engage, how they talk, and, all of that stuff kind of adds to it. It's either adding to it or it's taken away from it for me. But I am a big touchy feely guy. I like to see what the atmosphere feels like and, you know, kind of take it in like with a deep breath or something like that to get my first, barometer of how things are going to go. But it's a tough job that you guys have because there are so many little things that really make big differences, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's the architecture for me and design. I don't necessarily draw a line between architecture and design or interior design, although they are somewhat different disciplines. But when we think of design, it's very holistic. The fun part, is part of the design and the generation of it and working with the clients, and they're really the ones that that have the initial idea, whether it's a developer or another a company. They're the one that says, "Hey, we want to do X," and then it's up to us as the architects and designers to sort of interpret that, shape it, and bring them to perhaps a different place, but it's still, I mean, they're the ones that drive it. But aside from all the fun stuff of sketching and visualization and all that, we have to think about building codes and of course all the engineering that goes behind it, structural engineering, mechanical engineering. There's so many different aspects to it that have to come together, which makes it very exciting. And codes change, and different municipalities have different rules, and in Las Vegas, for example, there's a very, very strict fire codes. And so, all that has to be taken into account. And, when it's done right, hopefully it's somewhat invisible, and you really, you focus on what you were saying, the sort of, that experience. I will tell you one anecdote. It's somewhat obtuse, but with all the digital technology and all this stuff, I went to a Coldplay concert at the Rose Bowl about a month ago, and it's fireworks and lights and all kinds of stuff. And during one of the songs, they asked everybody to put their cell phones away. And that was the most special moment because it felt human in a way that not everybody was looking at their reality through a device. And so, I think that was a really profound moment, and something that in design, as an influence, I look at all different things. It could be a concert, for example. And, we have to still consider the human element and social interaction, so that we're not creating spaces that are so overwhelming and so digitized that it's not humane. And that's a fine line these days, because the demand for it and people's enthusiasm for it is pretty strong. um,
Yeah. Tell me what if you had to look at projects over your career and kind of sum them up. What would you say are the three toughest challenges you have when you're trying to engage in a new project?
Um, gosh, I mean, the one of the hardest, yeah, I mean, the one of the big drivers, of course, with any project is budget, and a lot of those, that historically, is almost never unlimited, and so we have to always. That's another constraint on our work, and what makes it very difficult is that at the onset of a project, you're dreaming it all up, and it's sort of boundless, but then it has to be reined in and still meet the client's budget, and we got to work with the contractor, and there's substitutions for stuff to try and get everything in line, and you just hope that it doesn't get compromised so much that the original idea is undermined. um, but other challenges, gosh, there's been so many over my career. I can't, there's plenty of times when something's in construction, and a steel beam is not where you think it's going to be, and it's very disruptive, and you have to make changes sort of on the fly and then modify the drawings. And those issues come up big and small on almost every project, and it's just part of the nature of building. um, I mentioned the Fontainebleau earlier. I mean, that certainly was a very challenging project in terms of what it is, because it's so intense. It's almost 9 million square feet, on a fairly small parcel of land. But that project suffered from the recession of 2008 and 9, and it stalled, and then it came back again, and then COVID happened, and then it stalled again, and finally the
Oh,
original owner has bought it back, and they're opening it in actually less than a month. So that was an 18-year waiting period for me. And it's that, I think, is one of the hardest things in our day and age of instant gratification. Architecture and design still takes a fairly long time to come to fruition. And so there's projects, hopefully at my point in my career, I've got concurrent projects. So there's almost always something under construction or near opening, which is exciting. But in many cases, we're working on projects that may be take 5 years to come to fruition, if not longer. And then if you do a master plan, you may never see it complete. It could be 50 years before the thing comes to its final culmination. But that's just part of it too.
yeah. Man, that is awesome. And what a great answer, because you really did just kind of say, some of this stuff takes, you could start here and who knows, you may not even be around when the project finishes. And because of just what happens in the economy and, in life, sometimes it starts, it stops, it starts, it stops. It's like,
Yeah.
it could really be an interesting life cycle to see a project that started, on the back of a napkin or, something like that, actually get to a place where you could actually walk in and touch and feel the actual building. That's a
Hmm.
interesting answer. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the arc of it all is tough. And the other thing I'd say is, not every project, in fact, many projects we work on never see the light of day, and so that can be frustrating too. So it just helps you celebrate the ones that you do get built that much more. I've probably
Right.
worked on hundreds of projects that aren't going anywhere. They're just, paper architecture filed on my computer.
Ready for when the owner decides they want to do something, or maybe not.
Someday. And that does happen. Sometimes that does happen. Someone will call you
Right.
back and say, "Hey, I'm ready to go."
Yeah.
It's
Awesome.
rare, but sometimes it happens.
Let me remind our viewers that this episode is being sponsored by Recover It. If you've experienced a home fire, tornado, or hurricane, you know how easy it is to lose everything overnight. Well, Recover It is a new app that allows you to record everything in your home, store it in the cloud for easy retrieval should disaster strike, versus you trying to recall all of the household valuables, jewelry, heirlooms that you may have in your home to settle up with your insurance company. Check out Recover today. Use the promo code on the screen and get 50% off. And we always like to remind our viewers to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us here on LinkedIn, and you can catch us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well, where Brett episode will be there shortly. All right. Got another question for you, Brett. Talk about the new markets in Las Vegas, sports, stadiums, studios. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting topic. Having been here, since 2006, even in that span of time, I've seen the city. I think it's almost doubled in population since I first moved here, which is crazy. So, um, and Las Vegas historically has had boom bust economies. So it runs real hot. There's a ton of building, and then all of a sudden, it corrects, and then it's not a particularly level place, right? Which maybe being Las Vegas is just what it is. However, as the city's grown, it's just vital that it diversifies because that's going to help level things out, improve the quality of life, different kinds of jobs, different kinds of experiences. And so over the past, few years now, we've added the Golden Knights as a hockey team, and I'm a big hockey fan, so that's been very exciting and well received. And then more recently, we've got the Raiders here. There's speculation that an NBA team is likely going to be coming, and of course, we've got the Oakland A's that have committed to building a ballpark here, not too far from our office, right on the strip. And so, I'm being from Boston. I'm a firm believer in that. And I've seen it and lived it, that sports can really bring a lot to a city's culture. And I think it already has. And so that's very exciting to see. And then also, this coming winter, I believe it's February, there's a legislative tax program that they're looking to pass, and I hope they do, that would allow for film studios, sound stages to have a tax incentive to move here, and that could be huge. We and Gensler actually does quite a bit of these kinds of facilities, not just in Southern California, but all over the place. We've got one in, I think, Montana, New Mexico, and so companies are finding that the amount of land and the cost of the land to build these structures in Southern California, it's very difficult, very expensive, and so I think it would be a wonderful augment to our local economy, and it's also affiliated with entertainment and all that, and we've got aside from the heat in the summer, pretty stable weather, no earthquakes generally speaking, so. it's that's what's really happening in Vegas. But maybe back to an earlier point on the immersive design, that is, certainly, like I mentioned, the Sphere. There's a number of other projects that we're seeing that are, trending much more towards that kind of environment. 10 years ago, the big draw in town was, the nightclubs and day clubs, and they still exist. But we're seeing a total new kind of percolation with this kind of project being the immersive design.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the sports venues. I think anytime you can add, the professional space, football, NBA, baseball, even the college venues. I mean, anytime you can add that venue to a locale or city, whatever, I think you automatically get, a time 10 explosion kind of people that would be willing to come in, visit your city, obviously spend money, generate revenue for the city, of course, but enjoy the space outside of gambling. I guess everybody doesn't necessarily gamble, but having the other venues, the other options definitely helps out.
Yeah, I mean, I actually forgot to mention, we've got the WNBA team, and they've won two championships. So we did their practice facility here. So we've got, women's, professional basketball, and a myriad of other things. I mean, I don't. There's also been talk about Major League Soccer coming here. I mean, it's just, there's times I look around, I'm like, oh my gosh, how many arenas do we have in this town? For 2 million people. Um, but all of that stuff, as you mentioned, what what I've seen is that gambling numbers, I mean, they continue to rise in volume, but in terms of their increase year over year, it's somewhat flat. Whereas the other stuff, sports, entertainment, concerts, residencies, that is continues to grow. And I think the younger generation is perhaps less interested in gambling, and more interested in, one-off entertainment shows, other rides, whatever it may be. And so that's interesting to see. And Las Vegas is an incredibly resilient place. Just when you think it's down on its luck, it's these geniuses come up with the bravado to make, a big splash and do something truly extraordinary. And again, on the, like with the football, one thing we're finding is the hockey games are generally a good mixed crowd with a lot of locals. I've seen at the football games, there's a lot of out of town fans that come. And so that home field advantage is not quite what you think it is, because it's such a draw to have visitors come here and see their home team in Las Vegas play and then make a weekend out of it or something like that. So there's definitely peripheral economic positive impact from the sports. And I think it will continue to be that way.
Yeah, I think you're 100% on that one because you still got a lot of Raider fans that still live in California.
Yeah,
so,
true, true.
so that's probably some of the influx that's coming into the Las Vegas environment for the Raiders game. But Brett, man, hey, I want to thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your time today. Love what you guys do. I love the space you're in. I probably could talk to you for another 10 or 20 minutes, but you know what? Our viewers don't normally have that kind of attention span. So,
I
so
get it.
I'm not going to press them and try to have them hanging on that long. They'll just be dropping off anyway. But we appreciate the time today. Love what you're doing over at Gensler. You guys keep up the good work. All right.
Sure. Well, yeah, I appreciate you having me on anytime. It was always fun to talk about design and architecture.
Yes. Yes. And as always, we like to remind our viewers, follow us here on LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can catch this episode with Brett on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. And as always, we appreciate your thoughts and feedback on every segment. This has been another Ted's Hospitality Minute. We'll see you again next time. Have a great day, everybody.
Ted's Hospitality Minute is sponsored by Recover It. Don't wait for disaster to happen to wish you had done this.